So as the Federal Reserve is raising these interest rates and people are panicking, you have to kind of think, as far as we know, as far as we're taught for the most part, people aren't really taught about money, the history of money, where it comes from, and what it is. And the money we use now is basically, it's called fiat money, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But basically, it's only worth something because the government says it is. And that's what fiat money is. If the government was to say that we're not using money anymore, now we're going to use bottle caps or Bitcoin or whatever, then your money would no longer be worth anything. It's just a piece of paper. It's not even worth the heat that it would put off and start the fire with it. So really, you have to think about, where does money come from as far as figuring out why the feds are raising the interest rate. You know, if we just continue to give out money, or if they continue to print money just for free with no cost, or with the banks not having to pay anything back, then our money would literally be worth nothing, because we can't take it and trade it for anything. And really, that's all money was used for in the first place. Money was used as a form of trade so that you didn't have to bring the trade that you were trying to trade. So for instance, if you were a butcher and you were trying to trade with a swordsmith, they would have to bring all of their swords and you would have to bring all of your meat to kind of decide who's going to get what. Because you don't know how much they're going to want to trade for. You have to barter, you got to figure it all out. So you want to bring enough. So people are walking around carrying, barrels of stuff to trade, and there's a market where everything gets traded. Well, that was too much to handle, and kind of cumbersome. It wasn't something that was very efficient. So they found a way to basically have someone that they would check the stuff in with, a bank, if you will. And the bank knew that this person had this many swords, or this person had, and I'm just using that as an example, but this person had this much meat. And the meat and the swords then would get notes, and those notes would be what people traded. So that you didn't have to bring everything, you just brought your note of what you had, and then you would trade based off of that. If I have 50 pounds of meat and I trade 2 pounds of meat for that sword, then now I have the note that's going to show now I have 48 pounds of meat, and then I have that sword. And that was how trade was established. And eventually, once it got out of that arena where they were no longer trading or bartering, now there was less bartering and more services being rendered and stuff like that. Well, then they got into the gold standard. Basically what the gold standard was money was based off of gold. So the only way you could carry the notes around was with gold. You traded everything with gold. So you would first go to somewhere where they counted the gold that you had, and you would eventually start to trade based off of the amount of gold that you had, and you had these notes, and that was what it was based off of. You couldn't have more money than you had in gold. And then once they started creating the banking system, you had to trade the gold into the bank, and then the bank would issue the notes to you. So rather than just having the gold in your own possession, you would put it in a safe place, which would be the bank. And eventually the bank started issuing out more money than it actually had in gold, which caused a lot of the crises and the depressions and stuff like that. So that became an issue. And it's kind of similar to how it's happening now. I mean, we don't have nearly as much. If we're printing more money than our economy is worth, then that starts to be a problem. So that's just basically some of the history of money. You kind of can see that the Federal Reserve has to charge something for the money that it's printing. If it's not charging anything for the money that it's printing, it would just cause inflation, and eventually our money would be worth nothing. So it's almost a checks and balance, not something to be afraid of. Can it cause issues? Yeah, I mean, we've seen the recession, depressions, all that stuff was based on the same system, so it can fail. It does have flaws, but one way for them to prevent those things from happening, like hyperinflation and stuff like that, is to do this, is to raise the interest rate. So while it does cost you more money and it is something to be, concerned or at least pay attention to, it isn't something that you need to be afraid of. It's just something that you have to watch. and figure out how it can benefit you. If you can't afford as much house right now, then buy a house and use it for a rental. Because again, one of two things will happen when as these rates go up. One, the housing market will go up with it, and the houses will start to cost more money. And again, rental properties may go down, but the opposite also could happen, where people stop buying houses and just stay in rentals. And if that happens too, then you got to make sure you have rental properties available so that when your rent goes up, you start to make more money too. And that's one thing that the rich do really well, is in an up market or down market, it doesn't matter, they're gonna make money. Alright, so I appreciate you guys watching. Let's build success together. Have a great day.